Dzień dobry.
Welcome to Beyond Borders, welcome to the channel, and welcome to the Poland series. We've just gotten back from Wrocław, where we spent a couple of days exploring the beautiful city, as well as experiencing the Polish culture.
Yeah, I don't think that there is like a lot left of Wrocław that we haven't explored. We were literally doing as much as we could in those few days that we were there.
We literally walked the city flat.
Absolutely.
Food was absolutely amazing.
Well,
Pierogi.
you know, I told James there is one way that you know you're in Poland, and that is when you walk down any street alley and you smell something delicious. So the smells of the food, the taste of the food.
The bakeries, everything was just, when it came to food, I have no words to describe it.
You'll have to just wait and see in our videos.
Every video that we watched was literally what we experienced. Food was top notch, very good, very tasty, very flavorful.
Oh yes.
Very, very homely, and just an awesome experience. When it comes to the beauty of the city, we walked just about everywhere. There's so much culture that is preserved in the architecture, and I must say, out of all the European cities that we visited, it's definitely one of the most beautiful in terms of the buildings and the way that the city is structured.
Yep.
Really?
And you can't forget about those little gnomes.
The gnomes were everywhere.
And so cute.
We took a photo with all of them just about, but I don't think we could have explored every single one because there were just so many.
Yeah.
If I had to sum up the trip, good food, amazing culture, amazing views, amazing architecture. Vibrant. People were so kind and so willing to help and talk to us, and were so intrigued that we were foreigners, you know. So overall, it was one of my favorite holidays to date. We will be posting a few of our travel vlog videos on this channel in the coming weeks.
So we won't be revealing too much now.
We're not going to reveal too much now, so stay tuned. Subscribe to our channel if you are not already, and like this video if you enjoy it, because over 90% of you are not subscribed to our channel. So if you want to look at those videos and watch the exciting time that we had in Poland, then be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on those videos when we do post them. We will be posting them in the next couple of weeks. But into today's video, a very, very, very,
Very.
highly recommended
And
video.
requested, yeah.
This video was requested multiple times across all of our videos that we have done in Poland. Hundreds of comments, hundreds of likes, hundreds of DMs in our social media channels. People even went as far as to email us to say, please guys, can you watch Bloody Foreigner, the Untold Battle of Britain?
And here we are, and we are more ready than ever, especially after experiencing Wrocław and the city, the country for a few days. We feel like this video is now the perfect time to watch.
I feel like we need some popcorn. It seems like it's a documentary. It's almost an hour long, but I'm super excited to learn a bit more about the history of Poland and to also get another perspective on a different view. We've learned so much about this country in the past couple of videos that I would love to just know a bit more about what happens in the country and what has happened in the country.
Absolutely. So, gotowi? Zaczynamy.
We are ready. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Britain, an island nation. We've withstood invasion and foreign influence for centuries, or so we like to think. But look a little closer, and you'll find that those who sailed our ships, fought our battles, and forged our identity weren't always British. The bloody foreigners.
If you go to Trafalgar Square, you go to Nelson's Column, and you look closely, you will see a black sailor.
Allied fighter! Always pilot!
This series tells the story of 4 iconic events from a surprising new angle that will alter the way we view our history.
Can I just start off by saying that I have no clue what this video is about? I've got a bit of a brief understanding that it's about Polish soldiers or foreigners that fought on the Ally side in Britain, but I don't know.
We didn't want to do a lot of research on this because we want our reaction to be pure and like 100% authentic. So like James is saying, we're going into this video and we don't know what to expect. We don't know what it's really about. And I am very keen to find out.
In the summer of 1940, a desperate battle raged in the skies of England. If Britain lost, Hitler would invade. At the heart of the fight was one remarkable squadron. Brave, rebellious, unconventional. 303 Squadron shot down twice as many Germans and boasted one of the Battle of Britain's greatest aces. The pilots kept a record of their exploits in a unique diary, but it isn't written in English.
Allied fighter! Polish pilot!
They're probably Polish.
303 Squadron was made up of Poles who came here to fight for freedom and help change the course of British history.
Wow.
How in hell do you think you're gonna fight the Germans if you can't even fly the ruddy aeroplane?
My men did not come all this way to sit around learning English.
Using the accounts of the squadron aces and the testimony of the pilots who knew them,
Man, this 12 o'clock!
this is the untold story of the Battle of Britain.
Do you know how significant that was in history?
Yeah, I just got some shivers.
It's goosebump stuff, but I remember in history, when I did it in school, that if Britain lost this war, that they had this specific battle, Germany would have invaded Britain and the whole face of World War II would have completely changed. Having Germany invade Britain, it would have been a completely different set of events. And the fact that Poles were involved, and probably, I'm guessing, one of the biggest reasons why the invasion didn't happen, is massive.
I mean, like they said, they shot down twice as many Germans and the 303 Squadron.
That was Polish invaders. Like it's crazy. Like even though we're only like 2 minutes into the video, I didn't know that piece of information and how critical piece of a role that they had played.
I think we're going to find a lot of very, very interesting information in this video.
Only the English Channel and a few hundred RAF pilots stood between Britain and invasion.
Now Adolf Hitler stood just as Napoleon had stood more than 100 years before.
As Britain prepared to fight to the death, thousands of Polish servicemen came here, the last free country in Europe.
We knew that England would continue fighting, you see, and we could sort of join them.
They had fled their homeland and crossed Europe. Now the Poles had only one desire: to fight the Germans.
Our country was defeated. We wanted it back. The commitment was total.
I think one of the biggest reasons why they took part in the wars because they knew that if they wanted their country back, they had to stop Hitler and Germany at all costs.
Yep.
Even if that meant fighting for an ally.
And it's a popular Polish thing that I keep on hearing and seeing everywhere is that they don't beg for freedom, they fight for it. And this is exactly what it's about.
Even if it means fighting on foreign soil, they did it.
Yeah.
They did it not just for Britain, they did it for their country.
Yep.
The Poles were eager to fight. Britain was short of pilots. There was just one problem.
Next.
None of them spoke the language.
The only English words we knew were yes and no. The only problem was knowing which to use.
Jan Zumbach had qualified as a pilot 2 years earlier and already seen action in France.
Have you typhus?
He described the obstacles he and his fellow airmen faced in his memoir.
Have you migraine?
We were continually at cross purposes with the British officials.
Have you TB?
A friend of mine had just about run out of patience when one doctor solemnly inquired,
Have you had VD?
Had VD?
Vidi, what's that?
So he took a chance. Answered.
Yes.
And was promptly hauled off for a vigorous massage of the prostate.
Examination,
Oh
please.
no. He's printed that on purpose.
Yeah, and I think he didn't know. He was just like, go along with it.
Nobody, he was smiling at them.
But they couldn't understand what we were saying, and I'm quite certain we couldn't understand what they were saying, because I myself didn't know a word of English.
And that was a great barrier, both socially and, more important, operationally.
Their English is pretty good now. Obviously,
Yeah, they learned.
They obviously learned, and they made it happen.
But Britain was desperate. On July the 22nd, 303 Polish Squadron was formed at London's RAF Northolt. To overcome the language barrier, its pilots were placed under English-speaking commanders. Captain John Kent, an experienced Canadian pilot, recalled his reaction at having to chaperone the Poles in his autobiography.
It was just about the last straw to find myself posted to a foreign squadron that had not even been formed.
I'm still just battling to comprehend how they put together a full-on squadron, like a full-on team, and there was such a massive language barrier. Obviously, you had the British and some other Western allies that could speak English, but the Poles couldn't. They could only understand yes and no. Like, how did they communicate amongst each other in the air? Were the Poles the main fighters and speaking in Polish fighting in the air?
I think so. You can't be fighting as a team and not be able to communicate with each other. So that is a given. I can guarantee you that they were speaking to each other in Polish.
Imagine leading a group of foreign nationals, foreign members that can't speak the language that you're trying to communicate in. Like, imagine the difficulty.
Yeah, but imagine the trust that they had to put in the Poles.
To get them over the line. Like.
Exactly.
I was thoroughly fed up and despondent.
Kent wasn't alone in his view.
Hello, boys!
They didn't think we really have any stomach for fight anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable.
That we are a spent force, and that we are an embarrassment and a burden.
Out of all the Poles, only 2 of them have any English at all.
Kent's commanding officer was Ronald Kellett. It was his job to turn 303 into a fighting force.
The men are being taught basic operational vocabulary. All I know about the Polish Air Force is that they lasted 3 days against the Luftwaffe. Well, let's hope we can make them shine more brightly operating from England.
Time was running out. Germany's high command wanted to complete the invasion of Britain before the winter set in. In early August, the Luftwaffe intensified its mission to destroy Britain's defences. The Germans had 2,500 aircraft. The RAF just over 600.
4-1. Like, can you imagine how desperate the British must have been that they put together a team that they weren't confident in, they just needed the numbers. Like,
yeah, the thing is, like, they couldn't speak to them. There was no, real confirming the skills, confirming the plan. Imagine, this was such a big moment in history, and I can just imagine how frustrating it must have been for everyone, not just the English or the British, but also for the Poles, because they are dedicating their lives to helping this country fight this battle, and communication is just such a problem.
I think it was probably one of the biggest fundamental differences, but it just shows you the willingness from both sides to want to win.
Yeah.
That they were prepared to sacrifice everything over just being able to defend not only Britain, but to defend Europe in the long-term scheme of things.
Yeah.
Angels!
Meanwhile, Zumbak and his fellow pilots were confined to the classroom.
Pancake.
Every morning, a bus would take us 10 miles to Uxbridge to learn the basic vocabulary which would be coming over the earphones.
Pancake.
Angels for thousands of feet altitude.
Angels.
Pancake for landing.
Pancake.
Bandits for enemy planes, and so on.
The angel, it's the height. You see, those in thousands, usually.
Bandits.
Bandits.
After 3 or 4 weeks of very intense classes, my vocabulary was good enough to, say, read a paper, but I couldn't pronounce it.
I understand the frustration of learning another language, so I can only appreciate how difficult that must have been, and to do it in 4 weeks, have a crash course in a language. We've been trying German for almost now 4 months and we are struggling. So imagine for these guys that have never spoken a word of English before to have a crash course, 4 weeks, English, and then go fight a war in English.
Ah, no, it's crazy. But so brave.
Captain John Kent came up with his very own strategy to vault the language barrier.
Aeroplane. Air-o-plane.
Samolot.
I had to learn some Polish.
Samolot.
I went round the aircraft giving English names for the various parts and getting the Polish in return.
Wing.
Skrzydła.
Should.
Skrzydło.
Gradually, I worked out a complete procedure in Polish and had it all written down phonetically on my knee pad. It worked very well and amused the Poles a lot.
Kent.
Yes.
No. Kentowski. Kentowski.
Just one more chance.
I feel like Poles also have like a sense of humor. I think that even when we were in Poland now, so many videos that we had watched spoke about the Polish face.
That's not a thing.
I think it's a lie.
That was not a thing for us at all.
Everyone was smiling and people were so like happy, jovial, like excited about life. And you could see that there were many of them that were also laughing and cracking jokes with one another. I didn't feel like...
Nope. I don't know who experienced that, but we didn't.
It's a lie.
Yeah, it ain't true.
Despite Kentowski's efforts, the Poles were increasingly frustrated.
Each night I say a little prayer for.
It was almost a year since they'd fled Poland. But instead of flying fighters, the British commander Kellett had them training on bicycles.
Poles wanted to go to battle straight away, and Kellett didn't want to allow it until they were ready to cope with the radio communications and so forth.
I mean, I guess to a certain extent they had to get some communication.
But that's like what I was saying, like imagine going up into the air, not being able to speak. So ride a bicycle and say left, right, group formation. That's probably the safest way of doing it before just jumping in the air.
Yeah.
Couple of miles up, 1,000 miles up, and then fighting a battle.
Yeah.
Zumbak was starting to doubt he would ever get back in the war.
Child's play. If the British are wasting so much time with their childish exercises, when all of us have already won ours, how long is it going to take them to train up their young recruits from scratch? And would I eventually get an enemy in my sights before he won the war?
You man, stop that!
We were all very, very eager to get on with flying, but we had to wait, so we were a bit sort of frustrated.
Listen, you're here to train for battle with the Germans and not to fool around and argue with each other.
So when exactly will my men start training in hurricanes?
Witold Urbanowicz was a legendary Polish flying instructor, desperate to get his pilots back in action.
I brought my cadets from Poland through Romania, Syria, and France.
I don't want people crashing around the sky until they understand what they're being told to do.
My men did not come all this way to sit around learning English.
There's nothing.
They came to fight.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. They didn't come all that way to sit in English class and learn pancake and angel, you know.
What's that got to do with war?
Yeah.
Nothing more that we can show the Poles on trainers.
Very well. Have the squadron proceed to operational training on hurricanes.
I would have just sent the Poles in with their own squadron. Their squadron team lead was Polish, and let them fight the war in Polish, in their native language, and have like the squadron leader speak English so that he can speak to other leader squadron members.
What if something happens to him?
Well, that's why we're watching this video, to find out what happened.
If something happened to him, I mean, he was the only one who could actually speak any English, that would be a problem. But now that the rest of the team at least has like the basic phrases, like left, right, whatever, you know, that's probably why.
It does help.
Yeah.
The Poles of 303 were finally back in the air. But before they could fight the Germans, they had to learn to fly in formation, the British way.
Why?
So many obstacles that they had to overcome just to fight.
Perhaps the training period was unnecessarily prolonged, and this certainly irked the Pole, but we still had to be quite sure they knew how we operated.
Back home, the Poles had flown planes with fixed undercarriages. In a British fighter, they had to remember to lower the wheels before landing. Not all of them did.
We had several aircraft landed with the undercarriage retracted. One of these was put down by Sergeant Franishek.
Stand to attention, Franishek.
And I tore him off a first-class strip.
Do you have any idea of the damage you've just caused?
He didn't know what I was saying, but he knew he had to answer in a foreign tongue and kept repeating.
Oui, mon commandant.
Amongst some of the things I said to him was,
How in hell do you think you're gonna fight the Germans if you can't even fly the ruddy aeroplanes?
Oui, mon commandant.
Go on. Go.
What Kent didn't know was that Joseph František had already shot down 11 German aircraft in France.
Dismissed.
But František would soon show Kent exactly what he was capable
That's
of.
crazy.
By mid-August 1940, Britain had lost half its frontline pilots.
The saying was that if you lasted the first week of an operational tour, you're probably quite safe.
The British believed the German invasion was just weeks away. With recruits as young as 18 being killed quicker than they could be trained, the RAF was losing the battle for Britain.
There were chaps who have flown, for example, 15 hours, and they were thrown into the battle. A lot of...
Like learning for a couple of days, not even a couple of days. You train for 15 hours and all of a sudden you're thrown in the biggest war of your life.
The world.
And then you die at 18 years of age. Yeah. We are so privileged that we are not like in that type of stuff. Even though there's other wars going on in today's society, it's so sad to see it, but I can't imagine being so young and being thrown into the deep end like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was mandatory, even in South Africa, to join the war straight after school, unless
compulsory conscription.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'd love to know is how old were these Poles that were fighting in this war? Were they young? Were they in their 20s, in their 30s?
The specific squadron?
This squadron, like the 303 squadron, like, because a lot of them, I don't know when this documentary came out, but a lot of them were alive, or a few of them were alive when this documentary came out, which I suspect was probably like in the 90s. We'll probably do a bit of research when it came out, but a lot of them are still alive, which means they were probably very young when they took part in the war, which happened in the 40s. Yeah. Like, those guys are probably about 18, 90, And if this series happened in the 1990s or 2000s when they made this, that would put the average age of these guys at around 80 years old now, which would mean that back in the war, they were probably like 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds fighting such a massive war, such a big responsibility.
And they've already fought in other countries as well. So, yeah, no, that's incredible.
A lot of them didn't come back from their first flights.
Despite this, the experienced Poles of 303 were still not cleared for action. On the 30th of August, the British commander Ronald Kellett led them on yet another training flight. But this would be a training flight with a difference. As Ludwig Paskiewicz wrote in the squadron diary,
after climbing about 10,000 feet, we flew northward. After a while, I noticed ahead a number of aircraft carrying out various turns.
Green 1! Green 1 to have a new leader! Man, it's 12 o'clock!
Paskiewicz was an experienced pilot, but had not yet engaged the enemy in combat.
Wow.
The training flight had strayed into a battle. A German raid was under attack over St. Albans. The sight of the enemy was too much for Paskiewicz. Without waiting for orders from his British squadron leader, he took matters into his own hands.
I opened the throttle and went in the direction of the enemy.
He obviously made it because he's talking about it.
I noticed at my own altitude a bomber turning in my direction. When he noticed me, he dived sharply down. I turned over and dived after him. I noticed the black crosses on wings. Then I aimed at the fuselage and opened fire from about 200 yards, later transferring it to the port engine, which I set on fire. I drew very close, and I gave him another burst.
Almost 1 year after the invasion of Poland, Ludwig Paskiewicz claimed 303's first victory against the Germans.
He hit the ground without pulling out of dive and burst into flames. I have fired at enemy aircraft for first time in my life.
Training flights are precisely that. Training flights. That means you don't go gallivanting around the sky shooting up Germans. The safety of your squadron is your first consideration. However, I do feel it is my duty, despite my better judgment, to congratulate Pilot Officer Paskiewicz on making the squadron's first kill.
Sir?
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
What an ass.
Very good.
He just took down an enemy.
Carry on.
A little bit more gratefulness.
Although he had already been in action in Poland and France, it was Paskiewicz's first kill. He was hugely elated, and so were we.
500 euros says he was probably drinking vodka.
Yes.
Under the circumstance, sir, I do think that we might call them operational.
That night, Kellett put in a call to fighter command.
Thank you, sir.
The Poles were back in the war. 303's first operational day marked a bitter anniversary. It was exactly a year ago that the Germans had invaded Poland.
Naturally, every pilot wanted to share the honor of the first battle. We had to draw lots for the different flights. I was lucky enough to draw the short straw.
We're flying some way.
Our aim was to be active and to fight. We were not fighting for England or France or things. We were waiting for our country.
Yeah.
That's what I said. They weren't fighting for anyone else. They were fighting for Poland because they knew that if Britain lost this war, Germany would have been almost unstoppable. And they would never have gotten their Polish country back and their heritage and their culture and everything. They knew. Yeah. That's what they were fighting for.
Yeah, you're right.
The pilots knew full well what Nazi invasion meant. In Poland, the wholesale destruction of a people was underway. Schools and colleges had been shut, teachers and doctors shot, and the first prisoners had arrived at a slave labor camp called Auschwitz.
No.
Can you imagine, all while this is going on, back home in your native country, everything is burning. The Germans have invaded, they've taken over, they're taking your family, your friends, putting them in concentration camps, and now you are alone in a foreign country fighting for your freedom. Like, I try and put myself in their shoes and I try and understand what they must have gone through, but it's just like...
You're leaving everything behind, putting your entire life on the line just to fight for your country that is busy burning down.
While you're fighting.
Yeah. And I mean, like the bravery that we keep on seeing over and over and over from the Polish it's just, show me another country that's been wiped off the map and fought to get it back. Show me another country that's been so brave, so resilient. It gives me goosebumps every time I watch things like this, and I understand why this has been so, highly recommended. It's giving just a clear picture of how resilient the Poles are.
I wish I was a Pole, just because I can say, look at what my people did.
Look at what we did. Look at us. You, all Poles watching, you should really, really, really be very proud, because
you have a reason to brag.
You really, really are a very resilient nation, and you fought for your freedom very hard.
Since leaving Poland, Miroslav Feric had made it his duty to keep a record of events in what became the Squadron Diary.
We are surprised that Adolf isn't taking advantage of this beautiful weather. You'd think he'd be bombing so hard, you could hear echoes across the island. But it hasn't started.
It was Feric, you see, that kept the diary. And he would invite other pilots to make a contribution. Well, I was never invited to that, you see. I was too small of a little minnow, you see, among the aces.
What's going on?
Maybe it's a lack of personnel.
He's planning something.
After an agonizing day-long wait, at 5:50 the Poles were finally scrambled for action. Fighter Command radar detected 200 German aircraft crossing the channel.
Red leader! Bandits 2 o'clock!
They don't look like a lot there compared to 200 Germans on the way.
303 was about to be tested in battle for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Targets and go get them.
Feric had fought the Germans in Poland in outdated aircraft. Now he experienced his first dogfight with the enemy in a modern British fighter.
I caught up with him easily. He grew in my sights until his fuselage fit the whole luminous circle. It was certainly time to fire. I did so quite calmly, and was not even excited, rather puzzled and surprised to find that it was so easy. Quite different from Poland, where you had to scrape and strain until you were in a sweat. And then instead of getting the bastard, he got you.
These Polish, they loathed the Germans. All we were interested in was to destroy airplanes, whereas the Poles, they wanted to kill anybody that was in these airplanes.
Then you can understand why.
They had...
Their families are busy, you know, sitting in concentration camps, and like their whole life as they knew it was burning down, and the Germans did it. So it wasn't like the British were trying to prevent something while the Poles were trying to kind of stop it because it's already happening to them. So it was a different feeling.
The Poles wanted revenge. They were in it to inflict as much hurt. They were out for blood.
They were.
They wanted
and
to
rightfully
kill.
so.
They
Look
wanted
what
to
was
kill.
happening in Poland, you know.
They wanted to kill. That was their main objective. Kill the Germans, get rid of them, exterminate them.
You're not there to play.
In less than 15 minutes of furious vengeance, each of the 6 pilots of Kellett's flight had shot down a Messerschmitt. Witold Urbanovich recorded their spectacular first day in the squadron diary.
This is dated the 31st of August, 1940. And there's actually an illustration here of the action that went on. I'm looking to see if there's an indication of how well it went. The exact count I can't tell by the writing, but I get the sense that this was a very successful engagement.
I just have to say, what a cool idea I think it was for them to journal, like, the whole experience. Like, imagine reading that back as the great-grandchild or the grandchild of the pilot, one of those pilots that fought, and just seeing like what they must have felt. They obviously documented a lot of their emotion and, you know, how they missed their families and how they were feeling and the struggles. And I think that should probably be in a museum somewhere.
I was about to say, it's probably sitting in a museum somewhere. What belongs to the family?
Yeah.
I think that was his grandson or his son that has that book. Can you imagine reading those stories, knowing what your grandfather or father had been through, reading all the stories that he had written, and basically almost like living through what he had experienced? I think it's like...
Even reading it back, like 60 years later.
Yeah.
Reading your raw emotion, your raw words. It's... Yeah, it's... Just...
I think journaling was probably a way of how these guys also coped with stress and with everything that was going on. They documented their feelings and what was happening so that one day, hopefully their story could be heard, not just by someone else, but by the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Here they are! Get the whiskey down, Barry!
Our squadron leader took us by Rolls Royce to the orchard in Ruislip. They had found out on the grapevine that the Poles had brought down 6 Messerschmitts, and they were celebrating.
So they obviously won.
Also, well, it had a nice big bar with a very pretty barmaid. That was the important thing.
They wanted to drag us into the middle of the dance floor, but we wouldn't let them. We don't want to make a song and dance about our achievements.
Yeah.
They are so humble.
They're still respectful, yeah.
Can you imagine how proud they must have felt walking into that bar, knowing that they were the reason why they've just brought down a brigade, a squadron of German soldiers, German fighter pilots.
Nazis, yeah.
But news of the Poles' success had spread far beyond the orchard.
From the Chief of Air Staff, Sir Cyril Newell.
Magnificent fighting, 303 Squadron. I'm delighted. The enemy has shown that Polish pilots definitely on top.
Congratulations.
303 Squadron has opened its account with a vengeance.
I wonder how big the 303 Squadron was. I know they said it was 600 members or 600 people that formed part of the British squadron against the 2,000 Germans, but how many Polish were in that 303 Squadron?
Yeah, I think that there were quite a few different squadrons, but yeah, I get your question. How many were in that specific one?
Or just how many in general fought in the war? 303 Squadron, I think, was Polish. How big was that squadron? And how many... So it's two questions. How many were in the 303 Squadron? And how many Poles fought in the complete war, Battle of Britain?
The Poles had joined the battle just in time. Hitler's planned invasion was thought to be only weeks away.
Repeat again, please, Goddard.
Captain John Kent, the skeptical Canadian chaperone, was with 303 over the south coast on their second day in action.
Realize we are only 6. I repeat,
Kent's flight of 6 planes faced 150 enemy aircraft.
Insane. Excuse the language, but I would be shitting bricks. It's not... It's like you know you're going to lose. That's the feeling.
No,
you know you're going to die.
No, I don't think that they thought that way at all. I think the Polish bravery just pumped through their veins, and they were like, put us in front of everyone. Bring as much as you can. We can be 6 against 200. Let me show you what we can do. You know, I feel like that was the adrenaline that they were feeling, and rightfully so.
British probably shitting bricks, scared. The Poles were like, bring it on.
The Poles weren't the ones that were shitting bricks. This Canadian guy, he was shitting bricks.
You can see by his face he was shitting bricks. The Poles were just like, bring it on, man.
It's like, we can do it.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Kent described how the Poles dealt with such overwhelming odds in his autobiography.
The odds are
Sergeant
overwhelming.
Rogowski, who was doing search formation behind, pulled up and went head-on into the middle of them, closely followed by František. The German formation split up, and a general melee ensued.
Kent watched amazed as the Poles flew head-on at the enemy bombers. With a closing speed of over 600 miles an hour, the slightest error would be fatal.
Streams of great traces of smoke crisscrossed the sky in all directions. It was impossible.
Can you imagine how chaotic this must have been?
Just getting goosebumps the entire time. It's just the way that this documentary is being told, I feel is so good. It's so descriptive. It almost makes me feel like I'm in there with them, feeling this emotion.
But can you imagine being there, even though this is a very good way of almost being there on the day, but can you imagine being in that chaos? Like, can you imagine being a pilot, the adrenaline that's flowing through your blood, what you are seeing, planes going down, and now you got to keep your cool, keep your calm, keep collective, and just keep going at what your goal is. Like, it's almost like I can't comprehend it.
They knew what they signed up for, and they knew what their goal was, and they knew what they were fighting for. So I think those experienced pilots, they went up there with a mission, and that mission was going to be completed to perfection. And that's what they thought. That is what their mentality was. I'm so sure of it.
I would have loved to have just been like a bird maybe flying past while this was going on.
No, not a bird. A fly on the wall.
I don't think a fly is that high up, but
no, a fly inside maybe. Inside
a Polish.
Yes.
Inside of a Pole fighter pilot's plane.
Yeah.
Because I know it would have been safe.
Yes.
And just watched what he did.
Yes.
Possible to hold a steady aim. And snap shooting was the order of the day.
In the frenzied dogfight, a Messerschmitt repeatedly latched onto Kent. But each time it closed in for the kill, it was chased off by a Polish pilot. Kent was certain of one thing. The Poles hadn't learned to fly like this in England.
No.
Just let them do their thing.
Back at Northolt,
Sergeant.
Kent did his best to express his gratitude.
Thanks. For keeping that Hun off my tail. The Hun off my tail.
Okay.
Just say dziękuję.
Not one Messerschmitt. 6.
Yeah.
You tell him.
But not all of 303 had returned to base.
No.
In defiance of orders, Joseph František and another pilot were harrying Germans all the way back to France.
František had a habit of departing from the squadron and hunting on its own, which was perhaps against the discipline, but at the same time, because of his individual expeditions, his victories mounted.
František, a Czech pilot who had joined the Poles when his own country surrendered, was well on his way to becoming one of Britain's highest scoring aces.
From Air Vice Marshal Keith Park. The group commander appreciates the offensive spirit that carried 2 Polish pilots over the French coast in pursuit of the enemy today. This practice is not economical or so sound now that there is such good shooting within sight of London.
Ooh.
I'm killing Germans.
Many excellent pilots have died due to lack of discipline. Do you want to become one of them?
I fly alone.
In a unique compromise, it was agreed.
So just to get this straight, he was a Czech pilot.
Czech pilot.
After Germany had already taken over.
And they had surrendered and he joined the Polish squadron.
So I guess his feeling towards it was completely different. I think, you know...
He was like a suicide pilot. He just didn't care. He just went in solo and just wanted to do damage.
I feel like he felt he had lost everything already and there was nothing left to lose. And that's why he said, I fly alone. Like, he was not listening to conventional rules. And he was going across the borders, obviously where he shouldn't have been, to kill more enemies.
He literally flew across the English Channel chasing the Germans back. If anything, super commendable. And I don't know, I guess, yes, he bent the rules and didn't listen to what he was supposed to do. But at the same time, he was killing German soldiers, German pilots, and chasing back the enemy. And he made it back. It showed how strong will he was, how strong of will he had.
Yeah.
From now on, František could leave formation to hunt alone.
There we go. Solo hunter, nothing wrong with that.
In just
He
6
wants to
days
do it,
fighting,
let him do it.
303 shot down 24 enemy aircraft without the loss of a single pilot.
We were one fighting family. Together we dreamed of a brighter tomorrow, when after the war, we would return to our...
There's one or two things here. Either this Polish squadron was really just like on another level, or the Germans were shit.
No, I think
I highly doubt.
Polish blood is just a victorious one.
I highly doubt the Germans had shit pilots because they had invaded Poland and everywhere else and did a good job.
Yes, but also think about it like this. You had Germans who were victorious in many areas already versus people, Poles, who are fighting for their country that is busy burning.
It's their last hope.
This was it for them. The Germans were just like, let's just destroy another one, let's just do this. You know, they were probably getting so used to destroying and beating the enemy or their enemy.
They were taken by surprise.
They were taken by surprise. Like,
they probably didn't think that the British or Poles had anything left in it. And that's why I think was probably one of their biggest disadvantages. They took it for granted that they were just going to walk over.
Yeah.
And the Poles said, not today.
Yeah, and I think they were exceptionally well trained. I mean, this is unheard of, you know. I mean, 6 versus 200. That's nearly, 35 German aircrafts per one of those,
it's
one
wild.
of theirs. It's
Crazy.
Commendable. Commendable.
There's no word. Commendable is like too poor of a word to use. Unbelievable.
Oh, unbelievable is worse than commendable. Yeah, we'll think of a word.
To our motherland.
As the battle entered a bloody new phase, the Poles would be at the heart of the defense of Britain.
In this historic battle, the mightiest air force, after the British, is the Polish Air Force. Every day we are winning against the Germans.
In just 1 week, the Poles of 303 had overturned British prejudice and proved their fighting spirit. On the afternoon of September the 7th, they shot down 16 enemy aircraft in less than 15 minutes.
Jeez! They know what they were doing.
It was a record unbeaten by any other RAF squadron.
Clearly knew what they were doing.
Bravo.
Be vigilant and careful to preserve your lives. Poland will need you at the end of this war.
Yeah.
I wonder if they went back home and fought in the war after this. Like, I'd love to know the story, like, what happened to these guys post the war in Britain.
That same day, the German war machine unleashed its fury on a new target, London.
Ugh. I hate war.
Millions of firebombs rained down on the great city of London.
Oh no, man.
Hitler's planned invasion was imminent. In preparation, the Luftwaffe attempted to smash the spirit of the British people. As he flew over the capital, 303's Canadian captain John Kent witnessed the aftermath of the first day of the Blitz.
I could see the fires that the Luftwaffe had started on this, the first raid on London. I had not realized that I could feel so deeply. But at that moment, I would have butchered any German I could lay my hands on.
Must have been so sad flying
I was
over
beginning to understand the
and seeing all of
the
that.
Poles.
They're very much like us. We find that apart from the language and the national differences, that we thought and they thought more or less on the same lines, which was kill the Hun.
Yep, all at the
But not
same goal.
everyone believed a handful of ill-disciplined.
I think the whole world had the same goal, except for Hitler's allies. Everyone had the same goal: destroy the Nazis, destroy Germany.
It's a big thing that goes around, and it says the best way to bond with someone is to have a common enemy.
They had a common enemy.
Yeah, they did.
And they bonded over it.
Yeah, they did.
And they won.
And Poles could be shooting down so many Germans. Chief skeptic was their own group.
Do you think that they were embarrassed that the Poles were doing so much better than their British pilots?
I think that they were grateful. I think looking at this and knowing a little bit about the history, not much, but I think that if it wasn't for the Poles, they would not have got out clean skate, and they probably would have been invaded.
I don't think that they would have won.
I don't think many people know what a big impact the Poles had on this war, and I don't think, I think it would be naive to think if you were British that you could have done this without the Polish. And I think that maybe the average British individual nowadays, and also back then, probably didn't know what an impact Poland had on the war. But I do think that the leaders definitely did know. Yeah. And what makes it even more sad is even though that these Poles fought for Britain and for Europe and for the Western world, after the war, they were left. They were left to fight for themselves, and basically the USSR took over. That's what makes this so sad and so disheartening if you are a Pole, that you would do so much for the world, so much for Britain, that when the war is over, you just left on the side and forgotten about, even though you played such a big and fundamental role.
Yeah, I guess this is exactly why Poland is not counting on anyone else anymore. They're not counting on allies. They're building up their own army. They're training their own soldiers and ensuring that if anyone ever tried to touch them again, it's not going to end very well.
You can understand why they are where they are today. It's because of all the series and history of events that have led to where they are today.
Yeah.
Even in modern day Poland, even though Poland is part of the European Union, like when I view things about Poland and look at their government and their economy and everything like that, they like to be isolated almost. They like to do things their way. When it comes to, for example, following European laws, they're like, no, we're going to do it the way we as Polish want to do it. And then I think it's just in a Pole's blood to go against the norm, the status quo.
Go against everyone and everything that's been against you when you really needed it. That's, I think they rely a lot on instinct and gut feeling, and I think it's worked out in their favor over the years. Yeah.
Group Captain Stanley Vincent.
Treat these claims with a lot of reserve.
Sir?
I want you to go through them with a fine tooth comb.
Yes, sir.
But Vincent didn't wait for the intelligence officer's report. When the Poles took off on the 11th of September, Vincent went on his very own spying mission.
He followed the 303 going into action, and he kept his distance and wanted to see how they do. He wanted to find out for himself.
He didn't have to wait long.
Bandits, 3 o'clock.
A veteran of the First World War, Vincent had never seen flying like this.
The Poles had jumped in on the scattered individuals, and suddenly the air was full of burning aircraft, parachutes and pieces of disintegrating wings. It was all so rapid, it was staggering.
The British trained pilots to fire from around 400 yards. The more experienced Poles were able to fly to within 100 yards before they opened fire. The effect was devastating.
I think anybody who was keen, and they were, and some of us were keener than others, was the closer you got in, the better.
Look at what happened there. The British, like, commander or top guy over there, he obviously didn't believe what damage the Poles were doing, so he kind of laid back, went with them into battle to see what they were doing, and then was completely shocked when he saw it, how they were operating in the air and just knocking down pilots and planes left, right, center. Yeah. And listen to what he was saying. The British were shooting them down 400 yards. The Poles were going up close and personal, 100 yards. That's like 3 times, 4 times as close.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's almost flying into them and then taking them.
Yeah,
that's just like,
you've
got balls, man.
Experience and
guts,
precision.
Bravery.
Guts. Yeah.
A bomber aeroplane is quite a large target when you get that close.
That's why they were so successful. They just
Every
went
time
in.
Vincent tried to get a German in his sights, a Pole dived in front of him and shot down his target. Vincent was transformed from skeptic to believer.
It's like they were hunting. They were hunting them down like prey.
Told Wilkins that what they claimed they did indeed get.
Any luck, sir? My God. They're doing it. Sir?
Scramble!
The success of 303 Polish Squadron was becoming a powerful weapon of British propaganda.
Squadron leader Urbanowicz is watching his boys getting into formation. It'll be known within an hour or so whether a German plane has been shot down, or maybe 2 or 3 or even more Germans. Good luck.
But news of the success of the exiled airmen was most powerful back home.
I was only 14, but I wanted to join the Polish Air Force. Unfortunately, I was arrested in June 1943, and after interrogation by Gestapo, I was sent to Auschwitz concentration camp and spent the rest of my war in the Auschwitz concentration camp. So my aviation dreams were shattered in that, in that sense.
It's so sad.
303's success in the defense...
He still like laughs about it, but I mean, it just shows you, I really do feel so much for the Poles, and I really do.
Defense of Britain had turned Polish pilots into what one paper called the glamour boys of England.
There was a sort of aura of romance about Poles.
A policeman was standing by the car.
He wanted to know why the car was left in the street without its lights on.
At first they didn't know what to make of us, but once we had a better grasp of English, the social life improved.
Would you leave a car like this outside a cinema in Poland?
No, we said, in Poland, we ride to the cinema on horses!
They all had the finest reputation. Bowing and the kissing of hands, which I mean was completely...
That is something that was on the Polish facts videos, that the Poles kiss hands when they greet, even though a lot of people have told us it's dying out and it's the older generation that used to do it. Younger Poles don't do it, but I mean, it's such a classy...
It is respectful, it's sweet.
Gentleman thing to do. It's sweet.
Unknown to some English people, it seemed over the top, and it also seemed if they did that sort of thing, could they be trusted?
My name is Jan Zombak.
The girls were nice and friendly, and so were their mothers.
I think it's a sign of like respect as well.
Do you know what I think?
I respect you.
And fathers were absent, most of them.
I wonder how many Poles ended up marrying or having kids with British women. Like, obviously being there. I don't know how many of them still had families back home or how many of them were single, but I wonder how many of them actually met and started families in Britain post-war.
I'm not surprised that the English girl went after the Polish boys. Rather, Polish men, they like to show off.
She put a record on and clung even tighter than she had on the dance floor. 5 minutes later, we came up for air and she withdrew into the bathroom.
Zumbak discovered it wasn't just the pilots of 303 keeping a diary of their exploits.
Even my limited English vocabulary was equal to this kind of subject matter, especially with the clues provided by the names of several members of my squadron. She had awarded them high marks in contrast to her rather disparaging assessment of her own countrymen. By my rapid reckoning, her survey was based on a sample of approximately 30.
Zumbak did not reveal the marks awarded to number 31.
So she was sleeping with Polish members of the 301, 303 squadron, and then keeping record of how good they performed.
The British believed Hitler's planned invasion was just days away. On the 15th September, the Luftwaffe launched what it intended to be a final knockout blow to destroy London and Britain's morale. This day would decide the fate of Britain and stretch every pilot to breaking point. A 400-strong enemy armada crossed the Channel. At 11:15, the Poles were scrambled and thrown into battle.
had shot down a Dornier, then had to hide in the clouds with a bunch of Messerschmitts in hot pursuit.
Even for experienced pilots like Zumbak, the stress of 2 weeks' combat had taken its toll.
For the first time in my life, I was really afraid.
The fear makes everybody cautious. So a degree of fear is a good thing. The important thing is to overcome the fear. And naturally, longer you fly, that process of initial fear, of overcoming the fear, wears you out.
They clearly did a very good job with dealing with fear. Like, I think they just like shut that part off completely in their head. There was just no fear. They had one goal in target and sight, and that's what they pursued.
I was afraid at one time or another. You don't know what the hell is going to happen, where are you going, and how the other side will react.
Seconds seem to pass like minutes. You live in a kaleidoscope of rage and icy detachment, continually alternating fits of attack and escape, now freezing, now sweating. Then, suddenly you emerge with a shock of surprise into a peaceful sky, as if you died and been reborn into another world.
You black out if you're in a turn. It's dangerous, because it's the time when you're blacking out, you can't see, you don't know who is behind you.
It's the G-force. When you take a turn at such a high speed, the G-force knocks you out.
I pulled myself together and managed to knock out one of the chasers.
Can you imagine how scary that is? You're going at high speed chase, you're taking a corner, you're half pass out, and then you come to consciousness and you're still busy fighting and trying to get the grips of what's happening.
I can't imagine it.
Oh.
The Messerschmitts before running for cover. I had to fade into a fat cloud bank, keeping an eye on my surroundings through gaps in the clouds.
In the first epic battle of the day, 303 helped stop the German bombers reaching their targets and claimed 10 kills. But the squadron joker, Zumbak, was to run out of luck.
Messerschmitt especially used to come in, dive, and out. You know, in the air, when you're there, it's all in seconds. Oh, I've been hit several times, but I've been down twice, only twice. And each time, I got away, you see.
It's bound to be France, I told myself. You're as good as in prison. I carefully fold my parachute, feeling pleased with myself for having kept hold of the ripcord. The sign of a cool head.
Oh no.
Some men appear, and fire each time I make the slightest move. They all come to a halt. Except for one man who approaches with a peculiar weaving walk. He's pissed, I think. So, I took out my pistol, held it at arm's length, and threw it away. Then I see his uniform. It's British. At the top of my voice, I yell out,
Allied fighter! Polish pilot! Sorry I fired! I didn't aim at you! Then why did you fire? I threw my gun away! To stop you moving! You're standing in the middle of a minefield.
Home.
Zumbak was out of the fight. But the biggest day of the Battle of Britain was only halfway through. On the afternoon of the 15th of September, a second wave of German bombers pressed home their attack.
Do you know why that the Poles went out for the kill direct in the plane and not just shot down the plane? Because if they shot down the plane, there was a chance that, like this Pole now, you could eject your parachute and you could go down to land and you can still survive.
Yep.
But if you shoot the cockpit and you kill the the inside, you kill the person that's busy flying the plane, you basically kill the German. That's exactly why they did it.
As the battle neared its climax, every available aircraft was scrambled to fight for the survival of Britain.
Up to 10 o'clock, 175 German aircraft had been destroyed in today's raids over this country.
The Poles had only 9 aircraft left. At 2:25, they were scrambled to help repel a 300-strong enemy force.
Between 350 and 400 enemy aircraft were launched in 2 attacks against London and southeast England. About half of them were shot down.
Only 7 aircraft made it back to Northolt. 5 were so badly shot up, Kellett said they were fit only for scrap.
Today was the most costly for the German Air Force for nearly a month.
Against immeasurable odds, the RAF held its own.
The losses were so high that Luftwaffe High Command realized that they won't be able to achieve air supremacy.
His plan to break Britain from the air had failed. 2 days later, Hitler postponed the invasion. That same day, Joseph František, who hunted alone, became the first 303 pilot to receive a British medal for bravery.
This pilot has taken part in practically every operational flight carried out by this squadron.
He has shown great gallantry in...
Do you know how good that guy must have been? That he fought all those battles and made it out alive. And he was a single, like a solo flyer.
Yeah.
Always attacking vastly superior numbers of enemy aircraft.
With 17 confirmed kills, František became the highest-scoring Allied ace in the Battle of Britain. He was killed less than a month later.
Shame. I wonder what he died from.
Squadron had shot down twice as many Germans as the leading British unit, for a third of the losses. On the 26th of September, King George VI made the first of many visits to congratulate the Poles.
He was so proud. So we knew that meant something, Poland.
The keeper of the squadron diary, Miroslav Feric, made sure that the king ended up in the book.
Whiskey, gin, sherry, cherry brandy.
Precisely why I'm not drinking.
The Messerschmitt!
I don't care what it's called.
Operational for under 1 month, on the 27th of September, 303 notched up their 100th kill. But the squadron's pride in its extraordinary success was overshadowed by a tragic loss.
They found Pasha.
Ludwig Paskiewicz, the pilot who broke formation to make 303's first kill, had been shot down. He was only the 5th pilot of 303 to die. Jan Zumbach commemorated him in the squadron diary.
He was one of our best friends. A brilliant pilot, in love with his role. He gave his life to flying, and flying took his life. He did not die of natural causes or in an accident. He died in battle, having achieved what he'd always dreamed of: victory.
The ultimate honor, I think, to die while fighting for freedom, you know, fighting for purpose. I think if there's any way he would have wanted to go, it's fighting for what you believe in. It's very sad.
It's very sad, yeah.
He will be welcomed to the Squadron of Heaven. To Pasha.
Zumbach was shot down in 1945, but survived. He later became a smuggler, mercenary, and ran a nightclub in Paris. The war had more than 4 years to run. But by October 1940, the Battle of Britain was over.
Most historians agree that the Battle of Britain was won by a narrow margin. And it could be argued that perhaps this narrow margin was supplied by the 303 Squadron.
It is with genuine regret and sorrow that I terminate my association with the finest squadron the RAF has ever seen.
Captain John Kentowski left 303 to lead his own squadron.
My profound thanks for keeping me alive and teaching me how to fight.
I'll never mind the flannel.
In the book.
Miroslav Feric was killed on patrol in 1942. His precious diary was continued in his memory. By the end of the war, the 303 Squadron diary filled 7 volumes. None of the 303 aces who fought in the Battle of Britain are alive today. Every year, a dwindling band of veterans gather at the Polish Memorial at Northolt to honour the fallen and keep their stories alive.
This is my highest decoration, Virtuti Militari. It's one of the highest Polish decoration for bravery. And here, Defense Medal, Defense of the Country, is Britain, you see.
1,973 Polish airmen lost their lives in the Second World War. But in spite of their sacrifice, Poland would be denied its freedom when the war ended.
That's what I was saying. Gave so much, so many of them died fighting in this war. And then at the end, we just completely left.
In February 1945, with victory in sight, the Allied leaders met at Yalta. Britain, which had gone to war to defend Poland, now faced the growing power of the Soviet Union.
Yalta was complete reversal of the British stand, and it was terrible shock for the Polish forces which fought so valiantly.
To pacify Stalin, at the end of the war, the Allies handed control of Poland to the Communists. The dream of freedom the Poles had fought and died for was over.
The Western Allies won their war. Everybody won, except us. We lost.
That is so messed up.
In June 1946, Britain held a spectacular Allied victory parade.
And they probably weren't
Czechs,
invited.
Chinese and Iranians all marched down the Mall past King George VI. But not a single Pole.
Why?
I am just lost for words.
Like, I can't understand why. What is the reasoning? Were they scared of the USSR and gave Stalin Poland as a piece? Like, why?
You know what? I don't care, like, who you're afraid of or what your reason might be. There is nothing that I can think of that can justify those actions. They had people who dedicated, given their lives.
Sacrificed everything.
They have left behind their families, everything that they've known. They went into this foreign country with a language that they couldn't speak. They did an incredible job, literally helped save Britain.
And the world.
And then they don't even have the decency to invite them to a victory parade.
I think it's like the biggest backstab in the history of backstabs.
Like I always say in the video, like, I wish I could just kick someone in the face, because this is what it makes me feel like. It is unfathomable. I cannot understand this.
As a British person, not that I am, but as a British person, I would feel ashamed watching this, knowing what my forefathers and government did so many years ago. Because not only did they leave them out of the parade, they left them under communist control, and that didn't last like 1 or 2 or 3 years. It lasted like 50 years, from 1940 to 1989 when Poland gained independence. It was 50 years under communist control. 50 years, half a century, Poland suffered. Makes no sense.
There's no words.
No sense, makes no sense. I can't understand it. And I don't know. I think that's why Polish people feel so sensitive towards these topics, is because of the injustice.
There's a big injustice, yes.
That was served to them.
My father was on the sidelines as the parade was going down the mall, not only given no credit for it, but basically being denied existence. It broke his heart. Plain and simple, it broke his heart.
Not one of the 200,000 Poles who fought fascism marched with the Allies that day. Britain did not invite them, for fear of offending Stalin.
We felt that the Allies...
It's exactly what I said. They were probably, the Western Allies used Poland as a pawn to give it to Stalin in the fear of the USSR. And Poland was used as a pawn. And basically used as a chess piece to be controlled by another country. Like, I don't know how leaders could have lived with themselves knowing what they did, like the injustice. Like, it's just so messed up. There's a lot of other words that I can use that I'm not going to use, but yeah.
It really betrayed us.
Yeah.
We were absolutely shattered. We were in despair, really, what to do.
And what about you, Ivanovich? Will you go back to Poland?
The papers are saying you should go home. Rebuild your country. There's no work for you here now.
No. You know what brought us to France. And to here. You have won the war. But we have lost it.
Witold Urbanowicz did later return to Poland. Accused of spying, he had to flee to America. Other pilots were not so lucky.
A lot of my friends did go back, and some of them, or a lot of them actually, made a sticky end. Unless you were a communist, there was no future for you.
At the end of the war, we were really not wanted in this country anymore. There is so many of us, and we are competing for the jobs. People didn't really mind where we go, didn't particularly press us to go here, or they just get out of the country, leave, go back to Poland, or go anywhere you like.
I think we never been really welcome by English, really welcome. That for sure. Rather, some may be polite and so, because we know of English politeness, but not as a real welcome to this country, Polish people. I don't know why not.
Wow.
Wow. Like, I can understand why people wanted us to watch that video, but those last 5 minutes were just absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
I'm blown away, shocked. Obviously, I had known a lot of the information, but when you watch this and get the context behind how hard and valiantly they fought, to be treated like that, like...
Yeah, that's just...
Human nature sometimes just makes me almost feel embarrassed to be human. because of the stuff that we do to one another.
It's a very eye-opening documentary. It really didn't feel like we were watching something for 49 minutes. It really feels like it was 10 minutes. It was so intense and all that, but
I'm glad we watched it, and
yeah.
I just hope that this is like remembered going forward. I don't think many people nowadays actually know the history of it and actually what happened. And part of this channel and why we're doing the videos is not only to enlighten ourselves and to learn about Poland, but it's also to bring stories like this to light, and in the hope that someone else watches it and realizes, you know, what has happened and transpired. I mean, it's such a great video, and I'm so glad that people were hounding us to watch it, because it really was worth it. And
yeah, and you know, as a poll, you can look at this video, and you know, it's been a, you know, almost 80 years ago. 80?
Yeah.
80 years ago. And you can look at it and, you know, decide for yourself how you will look at this. Will it be looked at with anger towards the rest of the world, or more proud and, you know, pride for the Polish, and how the Polish kept on getting up and kept on fighting and kept on, you know, just being strong individuals. I think something that we have to remember is that we cannot change the past, but we can control the future.
Build the future.
We can build the future, and I feel that is exactly what Poland is doing.
And what they have done for the past 30 years since gaining independence.
So when I watch this video, it doesn't leave me angry at anyone. It doesn't leave me thinking, oh, like, I can't believe they did. It leaves me with, the Polish were extremely undervalued and appreciated for what they did. And that is something that is just, it's horrible. But they were so resilient and so strong and so brave, fighting in another country with no way of communicating with people. And, you know, it's just, it's incredible. It really is. It just makes me realize even more why we're doing this, why we are specifically zoned into Poland, and why it excites me every time we do a video on it and every time we visit the country.
Yeah, it's really awesome to be a part of this journey and this channel, and we thank you for recommending all of the videos that you guys do, and for interacting with us through our social media platforms, on our comment section. Like, it means the world to us that you guys are watching these videos and also participating and engaging with us. So if you know, you've got more of those videos and videos that are similar to this that you think that needs to be seen or watched, please, you know, recommend it down below, and we'll definitely at some point get to it. The more videos we watch, the better we understand, and I think the better the world will also understand once they watch these videos. I think our channel has actually become so much more than just a travel channel. It's exploring, and it's exploring different cultures. It's going beyond borders, and that's what we want to do. So yeah, thank you for that.
And on a side note, you know, we really do respect you Poles a lot. This is a clear 49-minute, you know, summary of what I think the Poles are. Brave.
The best video I think that we have done, on my personal note, in the 20-30 videos that we have done, this is my favorite of all. It's the longest, but it just encapsulates everything so much, and the raw emotions.
Yeah. And we really, really respect the Polish, and we want to learn even more, because like I said last time, every time we watch a video, there's something that we learn that we thought we knew, but we didn't. So continue, you know, commenting, continue recommending videos. We really do appreciate every single person watching our videos and, you know, subscribing to our channel, because we do this out of love. We really, really do this because we're passionate about it, and we want to spread the word to the world.
And we've got some really exciting videos of Poland coming up, of our trip to Wrocław.
Yeah.
There's going to be a couple of videos of our vlog Poland series that we are going to be uploading to the channel in the coming weeks. So if that is something that interests you, keep an eye out, subscribe to the channel so that you stay up to date, or that you stay up to date with all of our latest stuff. But I think this is us for this video though. It's been a long one, but it's been a very good and enlightening one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So until next time, this is Beyond Borders.
Do widzenia!